Welcome to Champion Minded, the podcast for those who aim for excellence, not only in the sports arena, but in life. My name is Allistair, author, speaker, mindset and performance coach, and my goal is to help you unleash your unlimited potential and provide you with the tools to achieve greatness. Are you ready to become champion minded? Then let's do this. My mind, body, and spirit are strong. I embrace all life's challenges. I face my fears rather than hide from them. I choose happiness each day. I believe in the power of hope. I live my life with trust and courage. I set goals I can't possibly achieve, and then I grow into the person who can. I make time to reflect, rest, and recharge. I ignore doubters and naysayers, especially if they're in my head. I continually nudge my comfort zone because I refuse to live a life that is simply good enough. I believe love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. I know that no matter what happens in my life, I will be okay. I am resilient. Hey everybody, welcome to the Champion Minded podcast, or welcome back to it. I'm Allistair McCaw. This is the podcast for mindset, preparation, and motivation. In this week's episode of What It Takes, I have international hockey player, field hockey player, and Olympian Sam Ward. Sam plays for Great Britain. He has scored 72 goals in 126 appearances. And you might see by some of the photos that accompany this podcast on social media, be it Twitter or Facebook, that he had a horrific head injury just 2 weeks ago. So I was able to track him down, able to get him on the podcast. Super excited about this one. We talk about his upbringing. We talk about what makes a great parent, what makes a great coach, what makes a great teammate. We talk about team culture. And of course, he has advice for junior athletes or those who want to take it to the next level. So all the good stuff. We're going to get right to it. Here is Sam Ward. Hey Sam, welcome to the Champion Minded podcast.
Hello there, you alright?
Yeah, awesome. Finally able to track you down. You've been a busy guy, but we've had this chance due to obviously a circumstance that it wasn't obviously favorable. I saw the pictures obviously on Twitter, on your Twitter, and also I saw one or two newspaper articles as well, but you got a ball to the head, and those pictures online were, I mean, I'll be honest with you, just as I said offline here, they were shocking. Tell us a little about what happened.
So basically, I think it was nearly 4 weeks ago now. We were playing in the Olympic qualifier at Olympic Park in London against Malaysia in a two-leg game against them, and basically I misjudged my positioning on a rebound and ended up slightly trying to get out of the way of the front of the goal, and as another member shot and being in a bit of an awkward position, it hit me square in the side of the cheekbone.
Wow. Now, what was it, 6 or 7 fractures to the cheekbone, was that it?
Yeah, I think something like that. It was like the side of the eye socket basically sheared off. It snapped like at the top and just below, and basically that crushed my eye in and also caused fractures through the cheek and whatnot. So yeah, obviously a bit of a sore incident if I'm completely honest, and it's kind of had a few repercussions since.
Wow. Is that one of the first times you've ever been struck on the head, or obviously the game of hockey it's a pretty dangerous game, isn't it? I mean, you've obviously got sticks swinging everywhere, and you've got a rock solid hard ball that's flying through the air at who knows what speed, probably, I don't know, 100 kilometers per hour, maybe even more?
Yeah, so obviously it travels pretty quickly. It's hard, the sticks are hard. I think that's probably one of the parts of the excitement of the game and like the thrill of playing though. So it does have elements of danger to it. The rules have slightly changed for like set pieces and penalty corner defence, that actually you're allowed to put penalty corner masks on, but this was actually just in general open play, which it doesn't really have. We don't really wear protection in that area. So yeah, as much as it was a bit of a freak incident really, there was going to be elements of danger, and that's kind of what you enjoy and why you kind of play the game, if I'm honest.
Now, I mean, did you remember anything about it? Were you still pretty conscious? Or, I mean, obviously a blow to the head like that could knock you out for a bit. Were you still very conscious of what was going on, and was the pain like straight away?
Yeah, obviously, instantly, I kind of, obviously, the way I was trying to get out the way of the ball, I remember it's clear as anything. It's almost like the world slowed down. This is how I talk about it. Like, I just remember looking, trying to widen the goal is how I describe it. And I was slightly in the wrong position. And I just remember the ball kind of coming towards me in slow-mo and just being like, you knew it was going to hit you, it was just when. And actually it hit me square in the cheek, and I kind of dropped to the floor. But my first instinct was to stand back up. It didn't knock me out at all. I was just in a lot of pain, and you were like, wow, that hurt. And obviously I had a bit of a lack of vision in my left eye, so that concerned me straight away. And I tried to stand up pretty quickly, but literally I hit the ground, went to stand up, and the medical staff were unbelievable at Great Britain Hockey, and they were already on the pitch. The doctor had got hold of my neck, being like, "We've got to check this before you can move." And I was like, "Honestly, I have all feeling like I'm good." And they're like, "No, we need to do these checks." So they quickly did their checks. I was like, "I'm okay, all's good. Let me walk off the pitch." And if I'm completely honest, the one thing that's kind of going through my head is, get off the pitch quickly. Mum and Dad are in the crowd, and would you want to ever see your son lying down, receiving medical treatment and not really moving? So a bit of like natural instinct, I'd say, kicked in and was like, "Come on, son, get up, move on," and kind of get inside.
Man, well, obviously, I'm gonna post one or two of the photos up from your Twitter feed, and it's just an incredible job. Now, you were just saying that you had incredible doctors there. That already after 2 weeks, it's already looking a lot better and a lot different, right?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, the hair's already growing through the scar, which is lovely. And I reckon, give myself about 3 months just after Christmas, I reckon you won't see a lot of what's happened. And the way he's performed what he has is somewhat incredible. And it's incredible where kind of science is going these days.
I mean, it's amazing. I had, I grew up in South Africa, also a country, as you'll know, that plays field hockey as well. I remember it always in school, and we had it in the schools there, obviously with rugby and field hockey. And then I lived near I think it was the national. I think at that time it was the national stadium in Randburg. Have you ever been to Johannesburg, Sam?
No, I've not actually. I actually played the only place I've been in South Africa is we went to Cape Town a couple of years ago. But that was an amazing venue as well. Very windy is one of the biggest things I remember. But it was looking up at the mountains, so it was pretty incredible. And what a place to play!
Yeah, probably if you played in Johannesburg, it's such a high altitude as well. A lot of the guys struggle there. It's where the South Africans always make our World Cup finals in rugby and so on, because it's such high altitude. Everybody struggles with it, so it's like our secret weapon, for example. So, all right, moving on, and that's obviously what we want to look for. We want to look forward to what's going on. Olympics next year, Tokyo 2020. Does this put you in any jeopardy in any way, or do you think you'll be back pretty quick?
It's one of those that there's not really an answer at the moment. I've actually got to take a bit of time. I have a slight loss of vision in my left eye, which some of it will be permanent due to some damage in my retina that can't really be reversed. And we're not, on the flip side, we're not that far down on medical science yet to be able to do anything like a retina replacement or anything. So I do have some damage, but we're currently kind of sitting back. I'm resting up, which is hard as an athlete, to not do a lot. But actually, time is the healer here, and you've got to sit back and kind of see what kind of comes back, and that will kind of dictate it moving forward. It's one of those things that if you spoke to me in a couple of months' time, I think I'll have a lot clearer opinion of what's going on. But it could obviously go either way. But I'm a pretty ambitious guy, and my career came out of nowhere, really. So I've got the same mindset now, and I will be doing everything I can to come back for Tokyo.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's how far is it away? It's 8 months, right? It's July 24th, I think it starts.
Yeah, so not that far away when you actually think of it that way, but I think a couple of months we'll have a clear opinion. But wow, I'll be doing everything I can and working as hard and retraining brain as much as you can, even if I don't have that bit of slight sight back, that actually I can do and perform to the same level.
Now, you've obviously been to how many? One Olympics already? You've been to Rio?
Yeah, I went to Rio 2016, yeah.
How did you guys get on there?
We didn't actually place. We went into the games ranked fourth and obviously with an outside chance of a medal, but we didn't actually perform when it came to it, and obviously it was quite a tough tournament overall. with that kind of happening. So for me, really, I'm kind of exciting and wanting to go to another Olympic Games to kind of go and right the wrongs in a way.
Sure. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Belgium are the world champions right now, right? Or the Olympic champions?
Belgium are the world champions. Argentina are the Olympic champions. Belgium actually came second in Rio.
Now, I think there's, 4 countries that are like pretty close to each other, 4 or 5 countries. I mean, when I look at the scores of those games between those top countries like yourself and Australia, Argentina, Belgium, they're usually very close, aren't they? There's no one that's really, hammering anybody else like 7-0 or anything like that, right? They're all very close. It can come down to like one mistake or one poor decision, right?
Definitely, and that's the big thing about where kind of international hockey's gone. I think it's incredible the level that everyone's really, really raised. I'd say in the last 2 and 3 years that actually things are just getting tighter. And actually, if I'm completely honest, anyone in the top 10 could beat another side. That's kind of how it's got to. It's just the performance. The game's become so quick with the self-pass rule coming in and just alteration to the rules and stuff. Having time at penalty corners taken away, so they stop time to let people put the protective gear on and things like that. Actually, when the ball is in play, because we now play four 15-minute quarters, that actually the ball is in play for all 15 minutes because you've got ball boys and everything that actually, and you can self-pass, the ball's on the line by the time it's gone out, so the person started the game again. So I think that's what's made it so close, is just now how incredibly fit everyone's become and just
sports science, like you mentioned. Just
exactly.
How it's moved on so quickly. Let's go back. Let's go back to where it all started for you, Sam. How were you introduced to hockey? Did you play any other sports when you were a kid?
Yeah, so I grew up playing football, cricket, and hockey, really, and my main love was actually cricket. I absolutely adore cricket, really. I loved hockey as well, but I was always better at hockey than I was cricket, and football was kind of a backseat. So growing up, I played all the sports, and I think that was actually fantastic for me. I'd advise it to anyone growing up to try and play as many sports as you can and leave it as late as you can to kind of have to make a decision on one of them, because one thing is you get so many different variety of friendship groups, get to know so many people, and that's what it's all about, really.
Absolutely. So what advice would you give there to parents, for example, of a talented kid who really loves the sport, wants to maybe go one step further, either to college or to professional level, like where you are, for example? What is the age to specialize?
Well, I think as long as possible. I don't think there's an age in particular. I think it's just when it becomes difficult and kind of they conflict each other. So basically mine was cricket and hockey, and one's a summer sport and one's a winter sport, but all of a sudden then when you've got winter nets for cricket on the same night as you've got hockey training, that's when you start to have to make decisions and stuff. So you can be lucky and actually they fall on different nights and you're just a busy bee and you get to keep them both, or sometimes you do have to mix it up and take it in turns, or sometimes you have to make a decision. But I'd try and leave it as late as possible, because why not? You've got all the friendship groups, it's great fun, you're enjoying yourself, you're out and about, you're active. It's got kind of what we want to encourage.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned you played other sports there, you played some football. By the way, you were born in Leicester. Are you a Foxes fan?
I am a Foxes fan.
You're having a great season, aren't you?
Yeah, and obviously we came out of nowhere and did what people didn't expect was possible in 15-16 when we won the league as well. So hopefully they'll be putting a challenge in this year. But wow, they do an incredible job, and I think things like that come down to having top management like Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a lifetime Liverpool supporter. I mean, since the age of 5. So I'm not one of those guys that's jumped on the bus this last 2 seasons like a lot of people have. It's amazing how everybody appears all of a sudden when a team's doing well, right?
Exactly. Everyone says the same about me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Sam, you turned up in 15-16. I was like, no. When I was growing up, I went and watched the League 2 games when they weren't doing very well, and I used to love them then. But obviously now there's a bit more noise about it when they're doing well in the Premier League. And I just think some of their players and stuff and the way they gel and the way they're working together is just incredible.
Yeah, it looks like Vardy has found some form as well. He's on I put him just in the right time in my fantasy league team the night of They beat Southampton. What was it, 9-0, 8-0 or something?
Yeah, 9-0, yeah.
And I was smiling because I got about 30 points from Vardy. So thanks, James. He's still in my team. Thank you. So anyway, went completely off subject there. Yes. So you played lots of sports. You played cricket, football, hockey. Now, the advantages of all those multi-sports. Do you see it today in your game of the advantages of playing multi-sports?
Yeah, definitely. I think they've all taught me different things in different areas. Like obviously football, you have to have a lot of vision and things like that. So that's helped that. And when it comes to cricket and hockey, I think you have a lot of. Think of how many professional cricketers these days were good at hockey. So I think my example would be A.B. de Villiers. I think he played for the national team in South Africa growing up and had to pick between hockey or cricket. And then obviously was one of the best batsmen in the world. You look at his Larrup sweep shots and all things like that. Unbelievable.
And he played a high-level rugby as well. I mean, the guy played, I think, 3 or 4 sports at a national level. It's insane.
Yeah, and I think, you can just see how that's kind of probably helped him overall. And yeah, look at him playing cricket now. He plays a lot of hockey shots and things like that, sweeps and dinks and whatnot. And actually, you think that's all because of what he did growing up. And I think that's something that should be recognised and encouraged to all people, really.
Staying with development, parents. What are some of the mistakes that parents make, especially when they have a talented kid? Let's just say a kid between the age of 10 and 15. What are the mistakes parents make?
I think personally, I'd just say pressuring the kid. If you put too much pressure on your kid in their development, I think it's really hard, and I don't think they've probably developed enough to learn to deal with that and whatnot, and kind of battle against them, especially in that kind of age bracket. And actually, for me, my parents were incredible in my development growing up. And did they ever force me to go to any training sessions? No. I did it off my own back. And I think that's what's kind of in, which means now in the future that when I need to do things and I've got to fight and do things that are unexpected, it's because I've always learned to do it off my own back. And that's kind of fight desire comes from within. So I think one of the things is just not being too pushy. And also, they have coaches. My dad was one of my coaches growing up, but then we got to a point where you had other coaches and actually let them take control. They know what they're doing, and
let the coach coach. Yeah,
it's all about. Yeah, exactly. And I think I saw an interesting. Clip a couple of weeks ago. I think it was it even in school or college baseball, where a coach decided to, or I think it was a parent decided to start abusing the referee or umpire, whatever it is in that, and. The ref or umpire just walked out the game, went home.
I saw that, yeah. It was here in the States. I think it was you're right, it was a baseball game, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was just fair play to the umpire or referee. He's fine, he's just there doing his job. Stop telling him what to do. And I think that kind of discipline is something that would probably kind of breed into their child and everything, really. And actually, no, you want to be setting good examples in how to deal with people and speak to people properly.
Yeah. I mean, it's outrageous, some of these videos you see of how parents are behaving on the sidelines and, just that example there. I mean, I saw that the poor guy was even in the parking lot and they were still giving him abuse. I mean, it's just absolutely shocking. I mean, in my opinion, I wish clubs, schools, whatever, would actually penalize or I don't know, ban parents for half a season or whatever it may be. I mean, it's shocking. And who's the one that suffers at the end of the day? It's the kid, right?
Exactly, and that's the thing. And it must be embarrassing for the kids as well, and they just don't realise. And actually, that can have knock-on effect for the kid at school or whatever, and what their teammates think. So, yeah, I think it's just one of those things where we really need to let everyone do their own job, and you be there as a supportive parent and make sure you do everything they can to give them the best development.
Yeah. Let's talk about the car ride home. Did you ever have heated discussions with dad or mom on the way back from a game? How did they handle that? Because we know parents really want to get into it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think the one thing I will still say to this day is I had a cracking kind of combination. Mum always, in a nice way, always supported me and said, here we are, brilliant, well done, Sam, don't worry, would never go into the negative side of anything or whatever. Whereas actually, my dad was never negative, he was just honest. And I think that helped my development more than anything. He said to me, the conversation on the way home, if I behaved disgracefully in a game, he told me, Sam, that's out of order. like what you've done today is not fair sportsmanship and all things like that. And that I'm the first man to admit we all make mistakes. That's fair, but I think that is where further down the line it really helps you with discipline when you've had that kind of from above, where actually just being honest is sometimes it is hard to take, and sometimes you've been so bad actually he'd make sure he supported you and looked after you. But sometimes when you make mistakes, I think you need to be told so you can learn. You respect what you've been told, like whether it's a parent or a coach, and actually move on. And I'm a big believer in proving them wrong. So, and also with a parent, you want to do them proud.
Sure.
So the next time I went out there, I made sure I went and did my thing and put it right and proved and whatnot. And then completely honest was like, well done, son, like brilliant, and all the respect in the world. And I think having that kind of supportive, honest nature in general is fantastic.
This is great because this segues into the next topic I want to talk about here on Champion Minded podcast is mindset. We're very much, Champion Minded is about preparation, mindset, motivation. So into mindset, that segues beautifully because it's by the sounds of it, you were given ownership at a young age. You had to fight your own battles. You were rewarded on attitude, you were rewarded on work ethic, all these things. Would you say that was the foundation? You're known as a mentally tough player in hockey. Would you say those were the foundations of your resilience, your grit, your mental toughness at a young age already, that your parents pretty much said, hey, it's your show, and like you said, you would choose when to go to practice and you didn't have to be told?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think that is like sculpting my whole life in a way. Like in everything I do, I want to go out and perform and achieve. And if I'm the first person to be honest and mindset, I struggle to play a friendly game of hockey. I struggle to play a friendly game of cricket. I'll admit that all day long because my competitive nature is how I've kind of developed myself, and I want to win and the desire to win and doing everything I can for the team. So yeah, I think it's kind of moulded my whole life. Whatever I've done, I worked in the car industry. I sold a few cars, things like that. Actually, that was all sales. Is all about success and performing and often achieving what you're told you can't achieve. Because personally, I didn't have the best journey into hockey playing for Great Britain. At the end of the day, I didn't play junior international. I didn't have that kind of journey through and whatnot. So I had to work very hard, and I kind of came out of nowhere. So it was more the never giving up kind of attitude.
Yeah. Up until now, obviously, you've had this unfortunate incident happen 2-3 weeks ago. What has been the toughest time in your career? Where every athlete that's got to where you are has had some adversity, some challenges, some setbacks. For you, up until this moment, what has it been?
It's an interesting one. I think I've had a fair few that have moulded my life, but there's a few bits that have really kind of hit home at times, and there's people having said things. So for start, growing up at 16, 17, I was a small kid. I was quite stocky, probably carrying a bit too much weight really, and I didn't really understand anything. So until that kind of hit, and I was always told that I wouldn't make it because I wasn't quick enough, fit enough, and blah blah blah. So because of that kind of eventually, but I don't think that probably really I then realised, and I tried harder and harder and harder, but still didn't kind of get anywhere. I think the biggest thing was I was selling cars and playing hockey for Beeston Hockey Club at the time in Nottingham, while working in the car industry, and it really clicked at some point. I've just got to work as hard as I can and give myself the best chance, and then you never kind of live with any regrets. And I remember I got a phone call in I think it was March. It was March 2014. I'd actually been given a chance because the squad were away. The England-Great Britain squad were away at this World League tournament in India, and they'd got a European indoor tournament, and they basically had to dig into the club level players. And this was kind of my one chance to kind of show what I had. So we went and played in the European Cup in the A division. We actually got relegated, but scored quite a few goals and kind of got my name on the radar a bit more. And then I got a phone call briefly after saying, look, here we go. We'd like you to come in for a Great Britain trial and see how it goes. So that was kind of that. And actually then I did get given a contract, but I think the bit that really defined everything that I found so hard was joining the program in September 2014. You've done everything you can to get there, but you don't really realise how big the next step was. So the difference from club hockey to international hockey is just a completely different level. And first of all, I had a lot of hamstring injuries. I was still carrying a bit of excess weight when I first went into the squad. And basically, I didn't get picked for the tournament that was in December. And I wasn't fit enough. I was told this, and basically many things like that. Well, actually, the day before they flew to India, I got a phone call to be like, there's been another injury. We had quite a few injuries in the squad at the time, and you're going to come to India tomorrow. So I got selected to go, and I went out there and had my England debut out in India. We played Australia in the opening group game. I scored 2 goals and we won 3-1, and it was an incredible feeling. But I remember the coach speaking to me being like, when I came back, like his words were, "Look, you're a talented hockey player, but we need you in the best shape possible to be the best person you can be." And this still lives with me to this day. And I had to, after Christmas, run until I was deemed fit enough. So actually, after 6 weeks of what we called like physical development, where we just get as fit as possible, ready for the year, we do a physical block and no real hockey, I was actually, the squad were back on the pitch. And I was made to run for an extra 3 or 4 weeks. So the squad will be training on the main pitch, and there's 2 side Ds at our training centre. And I basically was made to keep running, basically, day in, day out, until I was deemed fit enough. And I think that was probably the toughest time of my career. I remember numerous days, but I remember one in particular being made to run a fitness test on my own to see if I was ready. And I cried my eyes out, and I was like, I'm done. I don't want to play ever again. I'm out of here. And basically that evening, I remember going home, explaining it, and just a couple of friends being like, "You've got this, just keep doing it." And actually, since then, I was selected for pretty much every tournament, bar if I had the odd niggle or injury. I've been picked for everything. So it's been pretty amazing, really. But I think that is probably the toughest part of my career, was that kind of phase where you had to get fitter, but you also had a bit of a mindset, well, I've made it, but I've not quite made it. And then kind of having to then really dig deep and really find yourself and get to the next level.
Sam, what does adversity teach us?
I think it just teaches us that, it's a tough question. I would say that the biggest thing for me is just, through all the tough times, you've got to fight as hard as you can to kind of deserve and earn the right for the good times, if that makes sense. And I think that's it. At the end of the day, I describe there's going to be peaks and troughs in everything. But real adversity teaches me that actually we're all human, and actually you've got to do everything you can to kind of come through that and be the best person you can be.
I like that. Let's move on to influences in your career. Now, getting to the top obviously requires some good coaching, some good mentoring, some good people around you. Who were the influences in your career, or who are still the influences in your career?
I'd say my mother and father growing up, but Dad coached me from a young age. He was brilliant with it. He was, despite your dad being a hockey coach, he pushed you, but he never pushed you too far, to the point where you were a breaking point. So he's been massively influential on my whole career, really. And I think someone who I will never forget actually was when I wasn't quite good enough for club hockey and stuff. I got given a chance by someone called Zach Jones. He's actually the Welsh national coach now. But he kind of gave me a huge chance originally at Beeston when I was playing there to like break my way into National League hockey. And then on top of that, I think the respect I had for Bobby Crutchley, who, when I wasn't quite in shape but I was scoring a lot of goals, who was our coach at the time, he kind of gave me the chance to really excel and become what I have become in a way on the international scene.
Coaching. What do you look for in a great coach? Or what are some of the characteristics you've seen in some of the best coaches you've worked with, Sam?
I think for me, I'm a very black and white character. I like to be told how it is, really. So for me, I think one of the biggest things I really like is honesty and approachability. I think if you can have honest conversations, whether it's good or bad, I think that's fantastic. And just being able to, which comes hand in hand with being able to approach them with the difficult conversations that you often have. If you can't approach them to talk to things, I know originally when you're quite nervous in an environment and you're worried about approaching a subject, actually you can get into your own head and really, I'd say you really dwell on things, and actually you can put yourself in a bad place because you haven't spoke openly and honest about something. So yeah, being able to approach a coach, discuss things, and actually get everything out in the open, I think is a skill that's just fantastic.
Yeah, it's those hard conversations that are the most, that move you forward the most, aren't they? That really get to the, like I like to call it, under the carpet. You know, it's we know there's an issue or something in the room, but it's under the carpet. We don't really want to talk about it. But once that comes out, then you can move forward. Let's talk about mistakes that coaches make, because there's a lot of coaches that listen to this podcast as well. So leaders and coaches, what are some of the mistakes that coaches make?
I think it's a fine line. I think if they make sometimes how they can make you feel. I think there's a fine line between honesty and completely picking on someone. I can't say I've ever particularly been in that kind of situation, but I have people that feel that way and stuff, growing up and whatnot. And actually, if people feel there's someone has a favourite, for example, and I think just giving everyone the same opportunity is massive. So, for example, if you put more work in someone in particular than others, I think it can create an environment where other people don't feel as good, which should be given the same opportunity. I hope that comes across right.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'll be honest with you, as a coach, you do have your favorites. Now, I mean, it's just like anything else in life, I suppose. You prefer some people in your team to others, and so on and so forth. But obviously, the skill is not in revealing that too much as a coach. Or otherwise, like you said, there can be issues in the team. Let's go on to team players. Great team players. What, in your opinion, makes a great team player? Because we've had a lot of guys on here and girls on here who play individual sports, for example. You're in a team. What makes a great team player?
I think you have numerous different great team players. So I think you could have different characters that control and have different traits, if that makes sense. So I think you have quiet ones that do a lot of things behind the scenes and support everyone, and actually they'll have little conversations. You have different characters that are fiery, for example, by the way they stand up day in, day out and be counted. So they're there, they do everything right, they'll do anything, they put their body on the line for the team and things like that. And then you have the others that I think that can really bring good conversation. So you have really good speakers, so you have your motivational blokes, but then also you have ones that can have, once again, a kind of honest conversation. So if you can turn around, certain people will have a fantastic delivery that they may be delivering what's a tough message, but the way they deliver it is in such a cracking nature. It really means it's good to take, because obviously screaming and shouting at people isn't going to help some people. And I think that's the thing. It's about understanding everyone's individual needs and how you approach that person best. And I think it is a two-way thing. So sometimes you may deliver something, but it's also in how someone receives information as well. So I think it's as much with the giver as it is the taker. But I think a cracking team player can normally deliver messages in all different ways and support each other when really needed.
Oh, that's very well said. This week I was consulting at a basketball college up in North Carolina, obviously with their culture. And we were talking about leadership with the players, and they have one particular leader that they've defined, but he is the example. He does walk the talk. He's motivational, like you said. There we get different types of characters who some are quieter, some are louder. However, they did admit that he needed to work on his delivery. They know he comes from a good place. They know he means well. That's why they've designated him the leader. But they just said, that the delivery sometimes can be a little bit better. Just like you said there, that knowing how to say it. I have this thing called PTT. It's when you're giving feedback or constructive criticism, is the right place, the right time, and the right tone. And I think that last one, tone of voice, is a big one, right?
Massive. If you scream and F and blind at people, I don't think they're going to take that in a great nature. Why would you at the end of the day? Whereas actually you can deliver an assertive message in the right tone and it will be taken fantastically well.
Yeah. And, a lot of the times, some of the guys will say, yeah, well, it was in the heat of the moment and so on and so forth. But I think it's just good to really, as a leader or as somebody, is to self-reflect on how you deliver that message, especially under pressure, right? Because under pressure, you don't want to be screamed at. You really want to be spoken to, and you're trying to create calm under pressure, right? You're trying to create control under pressure. But when we're screaming, shouting, it's showing like an element of panic in some way. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think if there's panic in the voice and stuff, it creates panic in all areas. And yeah, it's such an interesting thing, I find, really, the way people deliver messages and how they're taken. And actually, you can accept, I'm a big believer in someone may deliver a message badly, but you don't go to bed that night with it still bubbling in the air. So I may deliver a message badly now, but actually I know that. So after the game, I go and resolve that quickly. I nip it in the bud early, and actually it's been put to bed. And you go, I'm sorry, I probably delivered that badly, but here we go. This is what I was trying to say, and I'm sorry. And you kind of clear that air. I think that's a big thing in a sporting team environment now that actually is massive. If you kind of, I sometimes describe it as going to bed on an argument. No one wants to do that. And actually, if you just nip that in, it takes away that kind of negativity.
Yeah, that's good advice. I mean, also, it takes a bit of vulnerability, right? Is that, admitting afterwards, like, listen, you know what? I apologize for the way I spoke to you. It was the heat of the moment. Next time, I'm definitely going to try work on that. It's so important just to say those words afterwards, right?
It's massive. It's massive, and I'm the first to admit it. It's not easy making yourself vulnerable and going, look, I'm sorry, I made a mistake there. It's the same when you make a mistake in a game. It's sometimes not looking round to those people. I think it's looking at yourself first. Look, if you can stand there and say, look, yeah, I've done everything I can here. Now maybe you can have more conversations, but actually look at yourself first and go, yeah, actually, that was my fault. Someone may not have shown up for a pass or whatnot, but should I have tried to force something that's not on or whatever? So then there I am accepting that actually it is my fault as well.
Going back, or actually should I say staying in the team environment, I was watching a clip on YouTube yesterday or the day before on, we had that golden era of English football players, the times of Frank Lampard, Rio Ferdinand, Steven Gerrard, Beckham was there, Scholes was there, an amazing team on paper, but they couldn't make it happen when it came to the World Cup. I think, their best result was quarterfinals, which is fair enough. But with that team, they were, favorites almost going in. Of course, the Argentinians and Brazilians and the Germans are always the tough competitors in the World Cup in football. But they were discussing the fact that there was too many cliques in the setup. So, for example, you'd have the Liverpool guys sitting at one table for breakfast. You'd have the Chelsea guys at another table. The Man U guys at another one. How in a team environment, how important is it to get everybody together and avoid those cliques? Because does it happen in hockey as well, where some guys from the same club will always hang together and so on and so forth?
I'd actually say it's something I'm very good at. I think having certain, I wouldn't say rules, because when rules are enforced, it then creates people are at unease. But for example, like I think going to a meal, and I like to sit with someone different every meal of the day because you have different conversation, you get to know people better. And I think if you know these people better and you understand people better, it just creates a lot better team environment. And I can't say enough, like if you go to meal times and stuff, you don't use your phones and things like that sometimes, that actually simple things that make a big difference. That you go to dinner, we sit and have conversation, which seems to be a dying art these days.
Yeah, exactly.
Because people are always obsessed with phones and stuff. That actually we sit, you have dinner with different people at different times. We don't really have that. You go in and you kind of sit wherever's available straight away. Do you know what I mean? And actually, I think the other thing is kind of as well, because we share rooms that you often share with different people, so you get to know individuals better. So then it just makes it such a fantastic team environment, really.
Is that done purposefully in your culture, where the coach encourages, you sit at different tables and share it with different teammates? Because a lot of the times you always see in teams they share with the same person. Is that something that your coach encourages?
No, I think it kind of naturally happens, if I'm honest.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, and I think that's what kind of makes it so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me, what are one or two things that are great within the GP culture, hockey culture, within the team?
I'd just say the biggest thing is just the supportive nature we are to one another. Mm-hmm. We spend a lot of time together, and just being able to support each other day in, day out, and just the approachable nature of one another just makes a fantastic environment to be around.
Good. Excellent. This has been a great conversation, Sam. Again, thanks for taking the time for this. Few last questions. Advice you'd have for young up-and-coming players, that doesn't necessarily have to be field hockey, but young athletes, young players who want to go to that next level. They've decided they want to go to college or they want to go to a professional level. What's your advice for them?
I think the biggest thing is never give up on your dream. I think that's the biggest thing for me. I became an international at 23 and a half, which is quite rare. And having not played junior under 16s, 18s, and kind of through the setup. So I think the biggest thing for me is just never give up on your dream. If you want something enough, then put the effort in. And as long as even if you don't make it, can sit there, hold your head high and go, I gave it everything I can, then you're going to be proud of yourself. And I think that's probably my biggest bit of advice. And I think that's kind of was bred into me as well.
Great advice. Do you set goals? Do you have goals for your game?
Yes, certainly. We sit back. We have plans, and I work on what I want to kind of develop through each stage and stuff, and set goals in how I'm going to achieve that. If I'm completely honest, I wouldn't say I'm the most naturally gifted hockey player. I'm quite different, and I'm good at the gritty, dirty work that's probably not the pretty dribbling, the 3D skills that we kind of hold, but I think it's knowing your strengths and then developing your weaknesses to be nearer your strengths/super strengths is probably the biggest thing for me. And actually, I've been developing in the last year or so my overall game, instead of just going, I understand my weaknesses and here's my super strengths. Actually, you've got to keep your super strengths at what they are, because that's what makes you as a person, but you've just got to increase those, even if it's a little bit, just your weaker bits to be slightly better.
Yeah, great advice. Excellent. Final question. In your opinion, what does it take to be champion-minded? And that pretty much leads from probably the previous question, but what does it take to be champion-minded? And I know you've definitely spoken about that in today's podcast, but to sum it up.
I think for me, it's just basically setting yourself. For me, it was setting myself a dream and a target, and not giving up and performing and giving it everything you can to be that person. And sometimes there will be a knockback, but you accept it. That with the bad days, there'll be good days, and actually you ride the wave, because you'll get there in the end by working as hard as you can.
Excellent. Sam, it's been a pleasure. Thanks again so much for taking the time. We wish you all the best with your recovery and obviously working back to full fitness for Tokyo next year. I know just listening to you, you're champion-minded, you're a determined guy, you've got resilience, grit. I have 100% faith that we're going to see you in Tokyo next year. Before we sign off, what's the best place for us to follow you or reach out on social media?
Give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram. I think my handle is Samuel_Ward13.
Samuel_Ward13. Perfect. Sam, all the best. Speedy recovery, and thanks again for speaking to me.
Thank you very much.
Well, there you have it, guys. I'm sure you enjoyed that one as much as I did, speaking to Sam Ward. We wish him all the best for his recovery and for his rehabilitation back to health and fitness, and especially for the Tokyo Olympics in 2020. As always, guys, remember that this podcast is available on iTunes and on YouTube, Champion Minded. Follow me on social media or connect with me on social media on Twitter at Allistair McCall, on Facebook, Allistair McCall page, and on Instagram, Be Champion Minded. Until next time, remember you were made for greatness. Now go do the work. And as always, stay champion minded.